Welcome to our immigration briefing. Today, we're diving into a mix of music, politics, and protests. First up, Joni Mitchell made a rare public appearance at the Grammys, winning Best Historical Album for her box set. She also wore an "Ice Out" button on stage, sending a clear message against U.S. immigration enforcement, blending her love for music with activism. Next, in the political arena, ex-Capitol riot prosecutors are urging Congress to investigate misconduct by ICE agents, especially in Minneapolis. They're calling for serious oversight and accountability, using investigative tactics similar to those used in the Capitol riot probe, highlighting concerns over excessive force and violations. Finally, across North America, protests are raging. In Montreal and Vancouver, demonstrators are rallying against U.S. immigration policies, criticizing Canadian companies supporting ICE through contracts, and demanding an end to violence and human rights abuses. These movements show a powerful cultural pushback against harsh immigration enforcement. Please continue to watch for more detailed insights. The Toronto Star reports on Joni Mitchell's heartfelt acceptance of her Grammy for the historical album Joni Mitchell Archives, Volume 4, The Asylum Years, a collection that showcases her unreleased works from 1976 to 1980. The legendary Canadian singer, at 82, dazzled in a glittering gold and silver pantsuit as she took the stage, subtly making a political statement by wearing an "Ice Out" button, a protest against U.S. immigration and customs enforcement's aggressive tactics. Mitchell's speech was filled with humor and nostalgia, recalling her struggles during the British invasion era that threatened her folk roots, and sharing amusing anecdotes about her album cover choices, including a donkey sketch that once adorned a billboard on Sunset Boulevard. Her presence at the Grammys was not only a celebration of her musical legacy but also a quiet act of resistance, resonating with other Canadian winners like Henry Walter, aka Circuit, and Justin Gray, the first Canadian to win in the immersive audio category, highlighting the ongoing cultural achievements of Canadians on the international stage. Yahoo US details a strategic memo drafted by former Capitol riot prosecutors urging Congress to investigate misconduct by federal immigration agents, especially in Minneapolis where recent deadly incidents have sparked outrage. These prosecutors, who helped prosecute the January 6 insurrectionists, recommend leveraging investigative tools akin to those used during the Capitol attack investigations, such as gathering videos, social media data, and tips from the public to uncover abuses by ICE agents. Their memo emphasizes the urgent need for congressional oversight amid perceived inaction by the Justice Department, which has been criticized for not thoroughly investigating the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. The prosecutors advocate for forming specialized teams of former FBI and Homeland Security agents to scrutinize misconduct, and suggest that Congress partner with local law enforcement and utilize modern technology to preserve evidence and identify potential abuse, aiming to deter future violations and ensure accountability. CBC reports on a powerful demonstration in Montreal where protesters rallied outside the U.S. consulate to condemn the violent tactics of ICE and to accuse Canadian companies of complicity through their contracts with the agency. The rally was sparked by recent deadly incidents involving ICE officers in Minneapolis, including the shooting of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, which ignited outrage across North America. Protesters voiced their condemnation of U.S. immigration enforcement policies and called for Canada to cease exporting military and security equipment to U.S. agencies involved in human rights violations. The demonstration also targeted Canadian corporations like Hootsuite, GardaWorld, and Rose-Hell, whose ties to ICE are now under scrutiny. The protesters, chanting slogans like, "From Minnesota to Montreal, we won't stop until ICE falls," expressed solidarity with Americans resisting these aggressive tactics and demanded accountability, emphasizing that Canada's support and corporate dealings with ICE contribute to ongoing violence and human rights abuses. The Independent paints a vivid picture of the intersection between entertainment and activism during awards season, highlighting how artists are increasingly using their platforms to challenge the Trump administration's aggressive immigration policies. At the Grammys, celebrities like Becky G, Jason Isbell, and Kalani didn't shy away from making bold political statements, wearing protest pins, cursing ICE, and speaking out about recent tragedies involving federal agents. These acts of defiance reflect a broader cultural revolt, with musicians and actors embracing their rebellious roots and leveraging their visibility to call for justice, especially in the wake of heartbreaking incidents like the killing of nurse Alex Preddy and the detention of young Liam Conejo Ramos. The support was more palpable than at previous events, emphasizing that the music industry's reputation for boldness and nonconformity makes it a fertile ground for activism, even if some artists face industry pressures or personal risks. The Associated Press offers a detailed account of how the political climate has influenced judicial proceedings and legal controversies. A striking story involves Judge James E. Boasberg, who was cleared of misconduct allegations after a complaint was filed by the Justice Department. The complaint stemmed from Boasberg's remarks about the Trump administration's plans to ignore court rulings on deportations to El Salvador, which he believed could trigger a constitutional crisis. Despite the serious accusations, the court's chief judge found the evidence lacking, emphasizing that unsubstantiated allegations and a lack of context do not constitute misconduct. The case underscores the ongoing tensions between the judiciary and executive branch, illustrating how legal battles over immigration policies remain deeply intertwined with questions of judicial independence and accountability, especially amid the political upheaval of recent years. In another layer of the story, the AP details the risks and complexities faced by celebrities who choose to speak out against ICE and immigration enforcement. While many stars at events like Sundance and the Grammys have donned pins and vocalized their opposition, there's an acknowledgement of the obstacles they confront: industry pressures, corporate interests, and personal safety concerns, particularly for Latino artists who may have familial ties to undocumented status or limited legal protections. The narrative reveals that activism in Hollywood and the music industry is often a delicate balancing act, with some artists risking backlash or danger to stand in solidarity with immigrant communities. Despite these challenges, their acts of defiance serve as powerful symbols of resistance, inspiring public discourse and demonstrating that cultural influence can be a formidable force in shaping political debates. The Independent vividly reports on the UK government's intensified crackdown on social media advertisements promoting illegal immigration routes, emphasizing the potential 5-year prison sentences for users who tout such methods. The article details how the Home Office is deploying the National Crime Agency's Online Communications Center to scrutinize thousands of social media accounts, aiming to dismantle the online infrastructure of people smugglers. Examples include posts in Pashto offering jet boat rides from France to London for $4,000 and advertisements promising safe crossings via trucks, revealing the scale and sophistication of these illegal campaigns. Despite existing powers to target online content, authorities are now focusing on pre-arrival advertisements, especially targeting service agents, facilitating migrants' journeys, signaling a more aggressive approach in curbing the dangerous crossings and the broader issue of illegal migration. The Toronto Star covers a compelling protest in Montreal where demonstrators rallied against the aggressive immigration enforcement tactics of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, condemning both the agency's violence and Canadian complicity. Protesters, waving signs such as "No Fucking Way" and quoting biblical passages advocating compassion, voiced their outrage over recent killings by ICE agents in Minneapolis, connecting these acts to broader issues of human rights violations. They also called out Canadian corporations like Vancouver's Hootsuite and Montreal's Gardaworld for their ties to ICE, accusing them of enabling the agency's controversial operations through corporate contracts. The protest underscores an international outcry against the violent and often lethal tactics employed by ICE, with Montrealers demanding accountability and an end to complicity in what they see as systemic human rights abuses. Portland's mayor, Keith Wilson, vehemently condemns the federal agent's use of force against peaceful protesters outside an ICE facility, demanding their departure from the city. The report recounts the disturbing scene where agents deployed tear gas, pepper balls, and rubber bullets against demonstrators, including families with children, during a peaceful rally. Witnesses describe the chaos and fear inflicted upon civilians trying to protect their rights, with the mayor explicitly calling out the illegitimacy of federal actions and demanding resignations from ICE personnel. This protest is part of a nationwide wave of demonstrations against the Trump administration's immigration policies, which have seen federal agents involved in violent clashes and deadly shootings. The article highlights the mounting tension between local authorities and federal agencies, with Portland asserting its stance against what it perceives as unconstitutional overreach and violence in the enforcement of immigration laws. The Toronto Star vividly recounts the story of Emiliano Garduno Galvez, a young Mexican man, whose reckless act during a protest in Los Angeles resulted in a 4-year federal prison sentence. As the chaos of the demonstration unfolded outside a Home Depot, Galvez, in a moment of fury and defiance, lit a Molotov cocktail and hurled it towards law enforcement deputies, risking lives and igniting fears of violence. His admission of guilt, coupled with the plea agreement, reveals a stark image of a protest marred by extremism, where the incendiary device nearly struck a protester and deputies alike, threatening their safety amid the tense atmosphere of civil unrest over immigration raids. The Toronto Star also details a poignant and controversial episode involving Liam Conejo Ramos, a 5-year-old boy caught in the tumult of immigration enforcement. Detained alongside his father, Adrian Conejo Arias, in Minnesota and held in Texas, Liam's plight drew widespread outrage and media attention. A judge's intervention led to their release and return to Minnesota, highlighting the emotional toll of aggressive immigration policies. The story underscores the human cost of enforcement tactics, with neighbors and officials condemning the use of the young boy as a tool in immigration operations, and prominent figures like Representative Joaquin Castro and Senator Amy Klobuchar rallying to his cause, emphasizing that America's strength lies in its immigrant roots. Montreal demonstrators, as reported by the Toronto Star, took to the streets in a powerful display of solidarity against U.S. immigration policies, protesting at the U.S. consulate in downtown Montreal. Their rally was part of a broader wave of protests across North America, ignited by recent tragedies such as the fatal shootings of American citizens Alex Preddy and Renee Good during immigration enforcement actions in Minneapolis. These protests, characterized by strikes and mass gatherings, reflect a continent-wide outrage over the aggressive tactics employed by U.S. immigration and customs enforcement, demanding accountability and an end to policies that have led to loss of life and trauma within immigrant communities. CBC reports the heartbreaking story of Monica Collins Silva, a dedicated physiotherapist from Mexico who, after years of perseverance, finally achieved her dream of studying in Quebec and working in Canada. Her journey was filled with challenges, including mastering French and balancing motherhood with her studies. Despite her success in passing 3 sections of the French exam, she narrowly missed the passing score by just 1 point on the written portion, which cost her family their right to stay in Quebec. The family's hopes of building a future in Canada are now shattered as they face imminent deportation, highlighting the harsh realities of immigration policies that demand strict language proficiency. Collins Silva's plea underscores the emotional toll of such policies, as she feels discarded and inhumane, lamenting the lack of flexibility that could have allowed her family to continue contributing to their community while they prepared to leave. Yahoo US recounts the emotional release of Liam Ramos and his father, Adrian Conejo Arias, from a Texas detention center after over a week of confinement. The story gained national attention when a viral photo showed Liam, just 5 years old, wearing a bunny hat and clutching his backpack, sparking outrage over his arrest on his driveway during a routine immigration raid. Critics condemned the detention as inhumane, especially given that Liam and his father were following legal procedures with an active asylum case. The judge's order for their release exposed the cruel realities of the U.S. immigration system, which often detains families under the guise of enforcing deportation quotas. The case has become a symbol of the ongoing struggle to protect vulnerable children from the trauma inflicted by a system that many argue prioritizes enforcement over human rights, with advocates calling for the reunification of families unjustly separated. Australian Broadcasting Corporation sheds light on the broader crisis within the U.S.'s immigration detention system, particularly the large-scale detention of families and children. The Dilley Detention Center in Texas, which houses over 1,000 detainees, has become emblematic of the systemic issues plaguing ICE facilities nationwide. Reports of overcrowding, contaminated food, medical neglect, and physical abuse have surfaced amid a record surge in detainee numbers, over 73,000 as of January, fueling protests and outrage from civil rights groups. Attorneys and advocates describe the conditions as brutal, with detainees suffering injuries, psychological trauma, and even death, as the government's policies seem to endorse a systematic policy of violence. Despite official denials of inhumane treatment, evidence from testimonies and autopsies paints a stark picture of neglect and brutality, prompting urgent calls for reform and the release of families held indefinitely, as the nation grapples with the moral and humanitarian implications of its immigration enforcement practices. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6 debrief via email.